Hello, online learners. All right, Mr. Anderson here, working from home today. Quadratic equations solved by factoring is our lesson. All right, and again, quadratic equations means x squared. That's the quadratic. Equations means there's an equal sign, right? So quadratic equals. And when we have x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0, this is a quadratic equation. There's the equal sign, there's the x squared. All right, you can have an x term. And that means there are two answers, two solutions. Right, x squared. Now we could guess and check. We could go with all the integers. We could try and try and try. So we could say, hey, does x equal 4? Okay, we could put 4 back in the equation. 4 squared minus 7 times 4 plus 12. And we could go through the operations and get 16 minus 28 plus 12. Negative 12 plus 12. Hey, that's 0. Great, that works. Yes. Maybe then we try the number 2, because it's our number we like. And we try 2. 2 squared minus 7 times 2 plus 12. And all of a sudden we get down here and negative 10 plus 12 is 2. And 2 does not equal 0. So there is a nope. No worko. Does not work. Do not do. X equals 3. 3 squared minus 7 times 3 plus 12. Alright, 9 minus 21 plus 12. Negative 12 plus 12. 0 equals... Yes, there they are. So my answers to this equation is x would be 3 and 4. And that might work, except sometimes the answer is 4.3, or sometimes the answer is negative 17. So we have to have another way, all right? And we're going to talk about it. We're going to do it by factoring, because when we see this, I hope you guys are thinking to yourself, hey, we've been factoring quadratics, and we could probably see that this is x minus 4 and x minus 3. And I want you to see that there's something happening right there, okay? So, and we have to be prepared that we have a 0 in that, okay? It was x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 0. It's the 0 property, and that's our hero 0. Hero, all right? And if we have a times b equals 0, and again, guys, crap times crap equals 0, and I put a and b in there, right? I do not care that it's x minus 4 and x minus 3. We're going to talk about it as a whole factor. A is a factor, b is a factor. So if a is 3, we have, and b is unknown, we have 3 times b equals 0. Well then, b has to be 0. Right? To make that equation here true. Likewise, if I say b is 17, I just picked a random number. A times 17 equals 0. Well then, a has to be 0. And I got the, what's that mean? That means 0 is our hero. So we can have an equation with 2 unknowns, and because 0 is so powerful, why is my favorite number, that and 1, that we can solve this equation, all right? So, we look at the board. If I have a times b equals 0, 2 factors, different variables, but there's a 0, and it's our hero, and a and b are factors. So if a equals a number, 17 times 0 is 0, 32 times 0 is 0, 19 times 0 is 0. B has to be 0. Likewise, if b is a number, 0 times 17 is 0. Negative 7 times 0 is 0. 4.37 times 0 is 0. Whoa! Alright? Whoa! So if we have a factored quadratic, because it is x squared here, right? Because if I expanded this, we don't want to, okay, it'd be x squared minus 3x, so it's x squared. But if it's factored, a times b, and you see I have the a and b here. Well, that means either the first hunk of junk is 0, and you just say, hey, a is 0. In this case, x is 0. That's easy. 0 is an answer. X minus 3 has to be 0. That means we have to solve that. Maybe you guys can look at this and get the answer, but we want to be careful. It's not just the opposite. We solve, we get 3, and we can come over here, we can check them. 0 times 0 minus 3, if we try 0. Is 0 times negative 3 0? You betcha. If we try the number 3, we take 3 times 3 minus 3 equals 0. 3 times 0, well guess what? That's also 0. Okay? So it works. And what we want to be able to do is solve these equations. So, let's do some examples. And again, if you got this, try it without me. Pause the video and then try these. Otherwise, I'm going to do these rather quickly using the 0 property. Okay? And all of these 4 quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to go around the quadrants, like I always do. We have a times b. And all 4 of these, very important to know, is all 4 of these equal 0. Alright, so here we go. This is my A, so that equals 0. This is my B, so that equals 0. Again, if we multiply that, it would be x squared. If I solve these, again, these are just first order equations. We solve them the same way once we write them. And I get two solutions. And I can say, hey, x is equal to -3 and 7. I want you guys to use, notice I'm not using parentheses like a point. These are a special bracket there with a little ear on them, okay? And if I check these back, 7 minus 7 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. That works. -3 plus 3 is 0. 0 times anything is 0. That works. Next one, same thing. Now at this point, there's always someone saying, I already see the answers, I don't even have to check it. Well, be careful in quadrant 3, all right? It's not just the opposite. It is on quadrant 2, I agree. Because these first order equations, we set these equal to 0 because it's 0 here. Pretty easy to see that these are these answers. Okay, and if you want to do the same step, you -7 minus 7. So my answer this time is -7 comma 2, or 2 comma -7. Alright? And I can check those back and they do work. I will tell you the answer for quadrant 3 down here is not 3 and 1. And it's not -3 and -1. Okay? It is A times B, there is a 0. Boom! Zero product property. Whoop. Here we go. 2x minus 3 equals 0. Add 3. And all of a sudden we get 2x equals 3. Ah, so x is 3/2. Because 3/2 times 2 is 3, minus 3 is 0. Alright, it's what makes it 0, not the opposite. This one, 5x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1 to both sides. 5x equals 1. Divide by 5. You can hear my wife in the background. We're going to have tortillas for supper, it sounds like. Alright, here we go. And my answers are 1/5 and 3/2. And again, if I check them, they work. Alright, quadrant 4, I'm going to go kind of quick to keep this video short. I have A times B, and I have a 0. So I go x minus 3 equals 0, and I go 4x plus 3 equals 0. Setting them equal to 0, solving the equation, don't look for opposites. I do agree in this case, when you add 3 to both sides, you do get +3, but you do not get -3 for the other one. You get 4x equals -3, and you get -3/4. So x equals, and just to show you can write them either way, I'll do it that way. Alright? Now, I want to be clear. If I move my x-axis out of the way, and I multiply these out, 4x times x is 4x squared, x times 3 is 3x, -3 times that is -12x, -3 times 3 is -9, equals 0. And I know that we're not real good at this. I'm going to make this one term because we know we can, like terms. I want to be clear. If I gave you this, and you factored it to this, that's how we solve it. Or the one on the top here, this is one we're very used to. Hopefully you see if I write it out, it's that quadratic equation unfactored. But we can't solve unfactored quadratics. This is 3 terms. This is 1 term on the left side. A times B is 1 term. Up here it's x squared minus 4x minus 21, 3 terms. We can only solve the 0 product property, okay? So when we look at the next 4, we got to make sure we have our hero, who is 0, all right? And they have to be 1 term, A times B. Not A times B, there's a 0. Not A times B, but there's a 0. Not a 0, not A times B. Not a 0, not A times B. So if you're working ahead, we got some work to do, okay? The first thing is you have to solve by factoring, the instructions. So the first thing we got to do is factor. And in this case, again, if you're struggling with factoring, I have videos on that. Search Juda Math on YouTube and write in factoring trinomials. Alright, and I do this, and all of a sudden I can say, hey, this is 0, and this is 0, alright. This is a case where we add 4 in our head. We can see one of the answers is 4. We can add 2 in our head. And I get two answers, 4 and 2. Alright, and I don't know if you noticed that is the same as board 1. So we can, I don't need to check that, I copied that one. We can plug them back up in here, but we've already done that work. The next one. What times what? 3 terms. There's a 0, but it has to be something times something for us to do this. And again, Algebra 1 students, I never give you instructions solved by factoring and not have it not work out. Algebra 2, sometimes I'll ask you guys to solve. You try to factor. If it doesn't work, we might have to do another method. 10. So again, don't get caught. We're looking at 10. So I think it has to be 10 and 1 to make 11. 0 product, because it's A times B equals 0. And again, I kept these a little easier so we can probably move the numbers in our head. Negative 10 for this one. Negative 1. So the answers to this are negative 10, negative 1. Alright? Everybody, you can't solve quadrant 3. There's no 0. We got to have a 0. But luckily, we can do anything we want as long as we do it to both sides. So I'm going to just subtract 21. And I want to be clear, x squared, negative 4x, and negative 21 are not like terms. And all of a sudden, we get it to look like a quadratic in descending power. Again, I know I'm factoring quite fast. If that's a struggle, look that video up. But again, A times B, so we can set those both equal to 0. And I get x is 7, or I get x is negative 3. And I have my solutions. Alright, last one. Again, no 0, right? But 2x squared is positive over here, so let's get the leading term positive. Let's move to 16. Alright, 2x squared plus 12x plus 16 equals 0. Alright. Oh, this has got a common factor, so let's pull it out. Just like we've been doing. Alright, and if you pull 2 out of 12, I think you get 6. Oh, and that factor, so let's put the 2 out there. And I want you, this is the hard part for students to understand. X squared, 2 answers. An answer here and an answer here, right? Because there's the x's. The 2 doesn't do anything. In fact, at the very beginning, I could have divided all these terms by 2 on both sides, couldn't I have? And gotten to just this. If I divide everything by 2 before I start, I literally get this equation without the 2. So the 2 is just there. 2 times 0 times something is still 0. If one of these two is 0, the 2 doesn't make a difference. So we kind of ignore it. And I see to get plus 6, it's plus 4 plus 2. So obviously I have A times B. So we take that equals 0. So how about negative 4? And how about negative 2? And I know I've gone quite fast. I am going to put up a worksheet video so you can practice, and I'll do that as a slide. But this is called the zero property theorem, and I can't stress enough, guys, as we think about this, the key to all these problems is right here on this board. Alright, it's that quadratics, 0 is the hero, okay? And when we set these up, we must have a 0. Telephone.